Hey, wholeness, welcome. This is Josh of Innerskilled, Integrating Presence 2. And today I'm rejoined by Madhu. Madhu, what the heck happened?
Life. Life. I
Yeah.
mean, what could I possibly complain about? There's so many whatever challenges might be happening in my mind and my body in this world, there's always at least 10 times as many things working in my favor.
For those who don't have the background that I just got, something happened to Madhu's back here, and I could not, I would have never known if he wouldn't have said anything. And to me, that speaks to a depth of how it is possible to be okay, even when we're not okay. You know what I mean? Or how that well-being is not dependent on transient conditions, even because there's going to, sorry, we're just jumping right in here to the
That's
deep
good.
end, right? That, some of us will probably be on our deathbed, right? Not able to move, or some of us won't be in very good health. And I was reflecting on this today, me being maybe a little bit spending too much time in Scandinavia, where in Denmark, where there's a little bit of I think sly negativity or this kind of subtle complaints and things, but like some of us won't be able to do much on our deathbed. So the training of the mind is what's is going to happen. And there's people in such like paraplegics and people in such physical all kinds of states, and with the right kind of training, they can be happy and content and well. And this very short time that we have here, it goes well beyond that. So I just say that's a testament. And yeah, where to go from that? I'll throw it back to you to comment on that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something I learned while living as a monk in for the 5 years. For those unfamiliar, a shaven head, orange robes, the whole ordeal. Lived in ashrams, or it's a type of monastery, mostly in India. Is that there's such a relief in knowing that I'm not my body and I'm not my mind. I have a mind and I have a body. But just as we've seen every cell of our body change, they say every 7 years, every single cell is regenerated. And so we can see the body changing right in front of our own eyes. And we remember it was the same us perceiving the body change. So I know I'm not my body, I have a body. Same thing with the mind is I can change my mind. I can observe my thoughts and I can modify them. So I understand I have a mind, but I'm not my mind. I'm something beyond both. And there's such a freedom, a type of liberation in knowing that, because as you just so eloquently presented, to the extent that we can learn to navigate the mind and the body, but know that we have, let's say, agency beyond just the fluctuations of the mind and the body, it creates just a sense of ease and contentment, knowing, okay, the body's going to do what the body's going to do. And as you mentioned, on our deathbed, some of us may be more coherent than others, but for the most part, it's not an enjoyable experience. But we can still develop over the span of our life an ability to, let's say, be present enough no matter what the mind or the body is doing. So anyway, that's just top of mind as I sit here all stiff backed and healing.
It sucks, and it's okay to suck. And another thing this brings up is growth too, that when we're always in a comfort zone, we're not growing so much. And I think most of us will have enough challenges in our lives anyway. We don't really have to go out of the way to get extra challenges, although we can, because some people are terrified to get outside their comfort zone. So this is not an invitation for bad things to happen so I can grow. And then, evil people then have some kind of allowance to make our life difficult. And they can just say, oh, I'm actually helping you out. No, that's BS. And that's not what I'm talking about, So these inevitable things that happen on life's terms and not mine, right? That then we can still use them as opportunities for growth and well-being, and to develop skills as well, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, there's two sayings that I constantly try to remind myself of that help to reiterate these, let's say, kind of nourishing points that you're bringing up. And one is that we get to choose our hard, and most of the growth we want is in the work that we're avoiding, stepping outside of that comfort zone into the growth space. And when I say choose your hard, it really comes down to there's going to be challenges, problems inevitable in this world. And thank God, because that means we're living, if, okay, cool, there's a problem. Yay. Awesome. I'm still alive. And the idea is that we always have an option of what kind of hard we want to choose. Do I want to choose the hard of training my mind and take a little temporary discomfort for things to be easier in the future? Or do I want to not train the mind and choose the hard of letting it be undisciplined and letting it wander and all of the consequences that come with that. And so I couldn't say it any better myself of what you're alluding to here. And what a relief that there's opportunities like what you provide on this podcast to explore these topics. And I just want to take a second to appreciate you, because it's been maybe 2 years since we last connected. And, I could speak on behalf of everyone else listening here that it's such a blessing to have these sacred spaces, virtual ashrams, if you will, temple like spaces where we get to come together and explore concepts that have the potential to make our life easier. Let's say to choose the hard that's actually going to provide us the life we want.
Yes, of course that sentiment is echoed, and we'll talk about your new podcast here in just a moment. I wanted to echo this thing too of like the teaching of the two arrows. So life is going to give us the first arrow, the first start of pain, but it's the second arrow that's kind of optional. That how we hold it, what we do with it, like saying, oh, this shouldn't happen to me, oh, that it hurt. So we can add layers on top of what's already harmful. And like, as you had demonstrated in the very beginning, I didn't see any of this second arrow coming through. So that's kind of our responsibility in the training we can do in order not to add more on top of it. So yes, congratulations on the new podcast. I remember when you were starting this, you reached out to folks and I provided some feedback, turned it into a blog post too. But yeah, I'm really impressed with the level of professionalism and quality that has gone into this. And so you just talk a little bit about how that's gone so far. I mean, maybe what you've learned and what you have coming down the road too with that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you that it's those like yourself who set a really great experience as let's say me being a podcast guest and having been far acquainted now with a really helpful podcast that really inspired me to say, okay, this is this great service, a labor of love of sorts that I'm interested in endeavoring. And yeah, the professionalism, really just trying to make it as accessible as possible. And, speaking with awesome humans like you, I always want to say, let me do whatever I can to make sure I don't even want to lose it. I don't want to lose even a drop. It's like, when something's really tasty, you take the straw and you really, you know, I want to get every little drop of this. And so for the idea, I should say, of what we're trying to create here for this many episodes now of the podcast is just how to make it more accessible to fall in love with the practice of controlling the mind. Because if we look at most of the challenging experiences that we've had, most of the suffering, or frankly, most of the wrongdoings we might have done in this world is because of an uncontrolled mind. Like, and if you don't know, anyone listening doesn't know what I'm referring to, think about some of the worst things. Sorry to put you here, but think about some of the worst things you've ever heard of people doing to other people. It ultimately comes because somebody had a feeling and a thought that they didn't control and they acted on that feeling. And though, as you so nicely point out, the idea is our responsibility. Ultimately, we are the only ones in control of our words and our actions, which is what creates the habits and behaviors and affects those around us. And therefore, because it's in our control, because it's something that we are the only ones that can make a difference with, the goal of Conscious Success Podcast is making it as accessible, as easy, as, let's say, fun and joyful to learn how to control the mind so that our base level tendencies, our conditioning that might not necessarily automatically push us in a good direction, we can work with them and we can modify the thoughts and we can observe the thoughts, say, yep, that's not in alignment with my values. How do I work with that desire in a way where it doesn't drag me down into my lower senses? And okay, this is in alignment with my values. How do I spend more time doing that? So that we can become the kind of person that gets the results that we want. I always like to say, I'm not interested in getting one-off results. Those are easy. Like, how do we become the kind of person who just easily gets the kind of results and the goals that we want? That's more or less what we're focused on, what we're trying to assimilate with the Conscious Success Podcast. And I thank you for all your expert feedback and helping us.
Well, it kind of helped me out too, because then I had to like consciously put something down, and that's to actually see it come out. It helps my own process as well. So yeah, I really appreciate your, as far as coaching and advising, really good at giving enthusiastic support, and pointing out the highlights of where people shine as well. So it's this I would say carrot that's really needed where I've had so much stick in my life, right? So some of us actually need more stick, but some of us need more carrot. I think, some of us need some more mothering tendencies, some more fathering tendency. So balancing that out as well. And you spoke to the training of the mind. And it's the same way with ethics as well. It's a training. It's not like a thou shalt not forever and ever kind of thing. It's like, okay, here we are. Let's put this into practice, not as so have to be some kind of goody two shoes, but cause and effect. When I do this with this intention, then this tends to happen. And is that for my well being and for that around me or not? And not to beat myself up, but it's a practice that we can learn and put into to practice. And it's not because it's something I should do. It's for my own welfare and happiness and those around me, and just a learning and training process as well. And then until it eventually becomes more second nature, and then it's not as big deal or training anymore. So
Well
I
said.
also want to ask, throw in here too about this success. So we have some people that are super austere in the spirituality world where they almost even think money is like a really bad thing or a problem or the root of all evil or whatever. And I can kind of see some of this, whatever. But then we have other people that, well, maybe they've gotten a little bit too far into kind of the mega church idea of, just making up reasons for anything about getting. So of course, these are the two extremes, I think. So talk about like the middle part of this, why it's okay, how to do it ethically, why you encourage people. But then also there's, and then I think we'll start to wrap up on this question, keep this as a shorter episode, about balancing this with, okay, eventually we're going to have to let all this go
Mm.
anyway. We will probably take on the wisdom and the skills, perhaps, but the actual physical things, unless we somehow masterfully, you know, uh, plan our next birth to where we can somehow secure all the things. And I have heard some far out esoteric things, how some multi-generational families and magicians can do things like this. But let's just say for the most of us, we're not at that level, or should we even do that if we could anyway? But anyway, that's kind of far out there.
I love it. I'm a far out fellow. So these are the kind of topics, especially more esoteric stuff, that I'm so fascinated by. Well, here's what I can say. I've been on both ends of the spectrum that you're referring to. So growing up, I was very much indoctrinated into this idea that money is root of all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees. It's evil to want money. All of these really, I would say, unfortunate misconceptions that I'll address here in a minute. But then the pendulum swung to the other side as I really started to get more into, let's just call it self-development and trying to understand how to live in this world. Because when you do live in this world and get in the world of success, it can be the word might be attractive, seductive is probably even more appropriate to, find any excuse to justify making money. And, there's a whole, as you've alluded to, the whole other side of like how to use money in a way that's not necessarily advantageous for anyone. And so I will say the pendulum swung for me going from a very poor background to the point where my whole upbringing, it's like we were always in debt, never had enough. It was always like a struggle, and kind of being in that world, to learning from, all it takes is one person with some really clever ideas and a really good presentation. Yeah, money, more money. Actually, money is going to solve all my problems now. And so I've been seduced to that side only to, let's say, by a lot of suffering, learn neither side works really well. And the ultimate, let's say, balancing act there is the philosophical understanding that money is an amplifier. And that means money is not good or it's not bad. It's like a knife. A knife can be used by a surgeon to perform surgery to save a life. That same knife can be used to kill someone, to take their life. The knife is not good or bad. It's what we do with that knife. And so I always like to say money just makes you more of what you are already. It shows you all the quote unquote good and or bad parts of yourself so that you can work on yourself in a very efficient way. And it has nothing to do with happiness. And it will have no effect on your happiness whatsoever. If you're happy, money will make you more happy. If you're unhappy, money will make you more unhappy. It just amplifies what you currently are. And the truths behind that, I would say there's certain observable empirical evidence to justify this. And that is, number one, not only is money not the root of all evil, but actually poverty is the root of all evil. If you see what we will do in desperate situations when we lack resources and necessities, and maybe when I say we, maybe me, you, and anyone listen hasn't acted off those tendencies. Maybe we have, maybe we haven't. But we can understand in this world some of the most abominable things conceivable that people do. It very often comes from a place of desperation when there's a lack of resources, when there's a lack of needs, a lack of finances. So rather, just because somebody who has money might make some bad decisions, okay, that money has nothing to do with that. That person would have made those bad decisions with or without the money, but with more money, they just had more resources to amplify those bad decisions. So the problem is not the money. The problem is the lack of character, the bad value system that that person is acting off of. And similarly, let's say, the conception that I find really helpful for how to navigate, knowing, okay, money is not good or bad, it just amplifies. The solution to that, or at least the way I would suggest we can, or I orient my mind, and one might be able to orient their mind to avoid the amplification of money causing the issues, is like become the kind of person that you ultimately, let's say, want to be, or like the highest version of ourselves. And we don't want to push money away. One of my teachers from India, he's left his present body, but he used to make the joke. He would say, some other gurus out there, people want to give them money and they reject. They say, they go like this. For those not watching this, I'm like shooing with my hand motion. They go like this. Like, I don't want to touch money. Money is dirty. I don't want to get attached to anything in this world. And he said, but I go like this. And then now I'm making a hand gesture, like, come here, like, bring it to me. And the idea is that he would always say, because now I'll engage it in service. Like, give me all the money. I'm going to use it to improve as many lives as possible. And that's what he did, opening up thousands of centers around the world, because everything in this world is to be engaged in service. Everything can be used in service. And again, it can be taken too far where it's like, yeah, I'm going to use this private jet in service. But okay, no problem. If you have those resources, like, okay, it's your prerogative. Like, I don't even mind. There's nothing wrong with a private jet per se. But the idea is ultimately comes down to integrity. And it's like, I want to become the person, I should act as the person I want to become. I want to show up. I want to develop the behaviors and the character of the kind of person who knows how to do great things with money. Because the more you have, great, let it do wonderful things in this world. Go feed people, go change lives, go get yourself secure, make sure you're comfortable, because a drowning lifeguard can't save anyone, but a strong lifeguard can save many. You get to what you need. You nourish yourself so that you can go change more lives. And so anyway, that's the balancing act that I want to talk to before addressing your second question of how do we navigate that with detachment.
Sure. Yeah. And I'll just jump in there real
Mhm.
briefly. And then it becomes, well, first off, current is like in electrical. So it's like powerful and an amplifier. That's a good way to think of it too. Then it becomes time, right? Because to me, my wants are very little, and I always have trust that I'll have enough to do what I need to do, my mission in this world, and everything else is just kind of icing on the cake, and that's great. But I just find myself with all the things that I want to do, accomplish, learn, that it's actually time is more valuable because we can't. We only have so much of that. We can always make more money, but it's the time that's really valuable. But it's also me learning to value others' time as well.
Mm.
And yeah, and that comes in many things, but that's another topic. So yes, and speaking of India and this topic, as an aside, real quick, could you give me some advice? Because I'll be the first time going to Bodh next year early, what to do with people asking for money, begging and stuff. So I've heard it can be overwhelming for some people, and that will be tested on our compassion for sure. Some people say that. So if you have any like practical strategies of how not to go to any extremes on that as well.
I mean, this is such a good question. And I'm happy you're asking this ahead of time, because having taken many India pilgrimage retreats and lots of hundreds of people now at this point to India, most people don't have this realization until they're there in the situation, currently being overwhelmed and overstimulated. So what I will say is that one rule I always like to give by is give until it hurts a little bit, but we can't give from an empty cup. And so really what the way in which I will elucidate on this point is, if you have given to the point where it pinches, in other words, if somebody has, if you have $10 million liquid and you give 1,000, you probably don't feel it. It doesn't hurt. I mean, I would say somebody very diligent should love every penny and be very careful with, not squandering even just, any morsel of food, any penny that's there. Don't get me wrong, but I mean to say they might not feel it, you know, 500,000, they might feel. And so wherever our capacity is, whether you have $50 to your name, if your net worth is $50, giving a dollar hurts. If you're, $50 million, it might not. And so wherever our capacity is, like however full our cup is, the let's say meditation is give to the point where you feel the pinch. Because if you don't feel the pinch, it's like, it's still nice. Is it really purifying at that point? Is it really full of growth? So we always want to find that little sweet spot, that little growth area. And I always like The Richest Man in Babylon, with this very short book. If anyone hasn't read it, it's a very old school book, maybe 100 years old at this point, more. And it says very simplistic, just save 10% of everything you do. And then ideally, if you could save 10% for yourself and then 10% to give in charity. And I always just like that as a meditation, because 10%, it should pinch. It hurts a little bit. And, giving in charity. And so whatever that quote unquote 10% or whatever that percentage that hurts a little bit that you feel, because like, this is good for me. I'm attached to this money. So therefore let me give a little bit away. That's usually the sweet spot. And when it comes to beggars, it's like the meditation I've had, especially in India, is it's really obvious who to and who not to give to. Like, though some people can put on a charade and a show, it's a little different than like when I lived in an ashram in New York City, where it was like, I'm like, I'm not gonna give it to you. Like, you're doing fine. I can see you're doing just fine. And I'm jesting a little here. Whereas you can see people in a very destitute situation, which is not very common. Everyone has this idea from bad movies and about what India is like. Everything's desolate. It's just so not true. It's like you can go to those parts, but it's just, anyway, if you do go there and you'll see people who are in a very compromised, austere situation, yeah, I give to the point where it pinches, and who cares what they do with it? The way I think is like, we don't give because with the idea, I'm giving this to you, so you buy, you pay, you get the nice food. It's like, I give and then it no longer belongs to me. So anyway, that's what I offer those who always join us in India. And I would share that with you and anyone else who goes to similar kind of places.
Appreciate it. It's really good advice. It's very practical too. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then this isn't even just to India. I would say, as a matter of principle, it's like always find a place where it hurts to give. A good cause, like the better cause that, we got a beautiful farm here. We like take care of animals, and we got different places I like to put my, charity towards. Like, just find something good and just give to the point where if it doesn't hurt, I would say give a little more, to the point where you're like, oh, I don't want to give you this check. And like, I'm like, all right, that's good. That's like, now we're developing a healthy relationship with money,
Yeah, that's
the currency of money.
that's generosity for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
So
love
as
your point of currency too. Oh, no, please.
yes, no, it is. The current, I've heard that too in some esoteric traditions. They talk about
Yes.
current, like a electrical charge that comes through, because it is an amplifier. That's right. And we can look at, like, some people are energetically sensitive enough to have gold, and gold has like almost a physiological effect for some people, and almost a spiritual consciousness effect for people. And we have the whole practice of alchemy, and the external form of that was actually trying to, some say, produce physical gold.
Yes.
So, yeah. Okay, so to wrap up here, you wanted to answer this question about, eventually letting go, when it comes towards the end of life too, so like not having all this time spent in vain for chasing goods, goods or money, because it's important to some people. It can amplify, we can do a lot of good with it as well, but at the end of the day, we're going to have to let go of so much too. So yeah, holding these things, so, in the proper way, and in the view around this.
There's a beautiful Sanskrit verse in the Bhagavad Gita that alludes to this exact point in the second chapter. And it ultimately talks about the more that we identify with the sense objects. In other words, the eyes see something and they connect with the ears, hear something, the nose smells something, etc. We identify with things and then we say, oh, that's part of me. Just like I always give the example, it's like if we're sitting here, if you're listening to this podcast and all of a sudden you hear a car alarm go off, like you hear a crash sound and car alarm goes off and it sounds a lot like your car, how do you feel? All of a sudden, anxiety starts to raise, cortisol, norepinephrine starts to rush through, and we run out. But then what happens if we see that it wasn't our car, it was someone else's car, and they're fine? We go, oh, okay, okay, I feel better, right? Why? Because it's not my car, quote unquote, my car. Does the car really belong to you? Okay, it's there for a few days, few years, maybe a couple decades if you're like, it's like, it comes and goes. And so the more we connect and we attach ourselves and our sense of identity to things, the more that we believe it's us. Even our body comes and goes. It changes moment to moment. And so the extent that we identify with things, we become attached to them. And that attachment develops all kinds of emotions, and mostly negative, but definitely some positive. That this thing makes me happy. I feel some happiness when I go. No, I'm sad that it's not there, but the pendulum will always swing. So, how do we manage that? The Gita then teaches us the remedy for this is to, it says in very simple terms, do your duty, but be detached from the results. And in Sanskrit, the term dharma means we all have intrinsic gifts, blessed abilities, ways that we can contribute and serve in this world. Do that to our full extent. Give with your full heart, serve with your full heart and ambition, and use all your gifts and go all in. Make the biggest plans you can, do everything you can to achieve those goals, and simultaneously practice being okay with whatever comes because we cannot control the result. You might do all the quote unquote right things and it doesn't come. You might do all the quote unquote wrong things and the result does come. We are not in control of the result of our actions, but we are in control of our feelings and thoughts about those. In other words, okay, the result that I wanted to come didn't come. That's okay. That's through my behaviors, through what's quote unquote right for me, my karmic implications. This is what happened. I can't judge it for right or wrong because I don't see the big picture. Just like there's that beautiful old story where a man has a young son, and the young son breaks his leg, and then the man says, oh, this is so unfortunate. And the wise man watching this interaction says, maybe. And the man says, how dare you say that? He says, really unfortunate. He said, maybe. And then he said, we'll see. And then the soldiers come into town to do a draft, and they say, okay, all the young men at this age come with us, but he can't come because his leg is broken. And the father says, oh, this is fantastic. Wise man says, maybe. And anyway, and there's a series of situations where we never know the big picture. So our job is not to try to pretend we're future tellers. It's like, this is what's happening. Therefore, I accept it. And whether it's the result I wanted or not. So the way we balance this, and especially towards the end of our life, is our job is to just give, serve from our heart, do our diligence, use our God-given gifts in a way that not just improves our quality of life, but improves the quality of life of everyone around. And whatever the result is, we say, okay. And a mantra I offer anyone, and I even suggest you might say it right now with me, is like, this is happening for me. Nothing is happening to me. This is happening for me. And even if we don't know if that's true or not, why would we not orient towards that? If you don't know if it's good for you or not, it's like, why would you not accept what's happening? Because that is what reality, and be okay with it. And so that's the way we manage, especially with the time of death. It's like, okay, this body is a gift. I have it for a few days, few years, maybe a few decades, maybe a few centuries. Who knows? And the idea is, okay, this is what I have. Like, this is a time I'm allotted with it. And, even my children, they don't belong to me. I can't control them. Any more children? No, I can't control my children. It's like they're free agents. And all these things that I've identified with, it's like my job is to serve and connect and, offer as much contribution as I can and just be okay with the results. So anyway, that's the meditation that I always refer back to, that I learned as being a monk, that I offer for anyone who's looking to learn how to live within this world, but not be contaminated by it per se.
Very well put, and I appreciate that wisdom. And reminds me of a Tibetan saying. It's something like many expectations, many disappointments. It kind of speaks to the same thing of letting go of the outcome, right, and accepting what is. I mean, that doesn't just because we are accepting what's happening doesn't mean we're a doormat and that we'll just go along with anything. No, but it's just acceptance in this sense means, okay, not being in denial about reality and the way things actually are. And yeah, and especially not lying to ourselves. So with that, Madhu, I think thanks for going through with this, and even though the circumstances that happened. And why don't you tell people how they can get in touch with you, how they can listen to your podcast, anything else you have coming that you want to mention?
Well, Conscious Success is our podcast and our free community. And I just say we give everything away for free. I'm a big believer of just the free distribution of knowledge. So we don't charge for any of our courses or any of our materials, all our templates, all our strategies, from developing the monk mindset and learning to train the mind, to developing health through ancient Ayurvedic systems, or even how to grow your business holistically through what we call conscious market. Like, we just give everything away in our Conscious Success community. So the cool thing nowadays is you just Google Conscious Success, you'll find it. But what I'd like to do, just because I really love what you're offering, Josh, is There's one particular resource we're working on for the monk minds, like a special framework that we're developing, which should be done in the coming days, probably a week or two, by the time this is out, I should say. And what I'd like to do is gift that to any of your listeners particular. So here's what by all means, find us on Conscious Success, but anyone who's coming from here, what I'd like to offer you maybe through what's a fun trigger word that I'll know they came from you? How about
Just
integration? Yeah.
well, that's for the other one. This how about
Inner skilled. I love it. Inner skilled. So let's go with, if you send me the word inner skilled on any platform, Madhu.life, Instagram, I can find us anywhere. If you send us the word inner skilled, I'll know they came from here. I'll give you early access before we make this public to everyone. In addition to all our free resources that I'd love to do.
well, very cool, and that will give me the incentive to bump this up in the queue for release then too. So, all right.
Thank
And
you,
with
Mike.
that, I guess we'll just we'll leave it at there. And may all beings everywhere realize awakening and be free. Bye, everybody.